Welcome everybody. Yes, it's me, Desmondo from the Shed of War, and a little bit of special treat tonight. Yes, rather than reporting on a game, I'd like to report on this. This is the new release from my really good friend, Phil Andrews. At last, he has self-published Snorkers, Good-O. These are rules for the fast-paced naval actions from 1939 to 1942, and covers anything from basically a patrol boat all the way up to a light cruiser action. Now, I've been involved in playtesting with these for many years now, and initially they were concentrating on the North Sea in the period 1939 to about 1942. However, after playing it with Phil, I loved it so much. I said, please, could you expand it to do the early Pacific War? And bless him, he did a lot of work on this, a lot of research, and now this covers not only the North Sea 1939 to 42, it covers also the actions in the Mediterranean and the actions around Java, Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands. And I can tell you, these are terrific rules. I had no interest whatsoever in naval gaming. I tried a few galley games, I tried to dabble in World War One, and I've never really done World War II except as a board game. Really couldn't get into it. Then I started playing this game with Phil and I was hooked, totally hooked. So badly hooked, in fact, that I have invested an awful lot of time and money in building up British, Dutch, Japanese and American forces to fight the Pacific actions. And if some of you may have seen some of my older videos of playing Java Sea related actions and things like this, but these are a cracking set of rules, and I really do ask you to go and have a look at his website, which will be at the end of the video, and check out the rules, because I think you'll have an absolute blast with these rules. Now let's look inside and see what you need to actually fight a game of Snorkers. The most important thing to remember is you're not going to need a lot of vessels, especially at the beginning. And as the megalomania takes over, which happens to most war gamers as we know, you will expand your fleets, I'm sure, and you'll want to bring in different classes of destroyers and light cruisers, patrol boats, merchantmen and even aircraft. But basically the basic game needs between 6 and 9 ships per side. And normally most of these will be destroyers. You may have a light cruiser or even a heavy cruiser if the game allows. Now what you're seeing below are groups of just some of the Japanese, British and American destroyers that I have actually bought over the years. So if I zoom in slow, you'll see that I've got representatives of most of the different classes here. In fact, for the Americans, I should point out, I've probably got about another 4 or 5 different classes of ships. I have at least 3 of each type of class of ship. And in my case, I've named them based on what was going on in the Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands. So these are ships that actually were involved. If we then move up to the Japanese, which were the first ships that I did, again, I'll have multiple numbers of all these classes of destroyers. And I didn't name these simply because I wanted to keep the labels as simple as possible for the Japanese and make them interchangeable. And now we come to the British. You'll see that these again are named. Again, these are ships that fought in the Java Sea and Indian Ocean and around that area. Now, again, these are all different types, and the number of British ships in the actually this part of the conflict was limited, so I didn't have to multiple numbers of these destroyers to actually play the games. Other than destroyers, you may want to add things like light cruisers, and eventually, as you get more confident in the game and want to expand your scenarios, move up into the larger beasts. Now again, you can see that my collection has some of these larger beasts, and this is just some examples. If we go down here, we've got the British here with HMS Darnay, HMS A Perth, HMS Exeter. We have on the US side USS Atlanta, Quincy and the USS Washington, which yes is a battleship, but did actually make a entrance into the Guadalcanal campaign and played an interesting role because it fought at night and therefore couldn't use its large guns out in the night action because it didn't have radar at the time. We come down here now too. These are the Dutch, which fought obviously in the Battle of the Java Sea, and these just include some examples of the ships there. And finally, we've got some examples of the Japanese ships. You know, there's that big beast there, the Congo, is the biggest Japanese ship I have. I have no aircraft carriers, I have no desire to have them. But these are beautiful models, and again, these are all 3D prints from the same provider, on which you can find a link to at the end of the video. But these are all beautiful things that basically I just added because I just enjoyed painting them and adding them. But most of them have seen action in scenarios, and therefore they are originally potentially going to be a great source of fun and added on to your games as you develop your interest and as you get more and more into playing Snorkers. Next up that you might want to add to your collection are aircraft. You might especially want to do this for the Pacific games because air power in the Java Sea, Guadalcanal and Solomons was actually already very important. And it adds a nice little bit of twist and interest to the game as you bring on flights of aircraft to support your naval action. Now the Japanese aircraft, which I'll zoom in here, and the Americans are both from Fujima. They are one-piece items, they're plastic, and you can get them quite easily on eBay and places like that. They are a different scale from the ships, but as they are above the ships, and you can see, for example, the patrol boat below, it gives the impression they're closer to the eye, which of course they are, and they don't look out of position at all in the game. In fact, I think they look fantastic scale. Now we then come down to the Dutch and the British, and here I have, so these are 3D prints, and these are the British wildebeests, which we use to torpedo bombers, and then at the top you have the Dutch heavy bombers, which we use to fly out to try and intercept the Japanese fleets as they advanced down in towards Java, protecting the merchant ships that were carrying the troops. Below that you'll see there's been patrol boats. Now I've only got US patrol boats, again these are 3D prints, and I've got some E-boats for the Germans to fight games in the North Sea against merchant shipping with light numbers of destroyers. Again, these are all things you can add as you get more and more into the game. Last but no means least are your merchant vessels. Now these are, I basically picked a load to fight in the Pacific, but I have admittedly got a few Liberty ships in here too. These are all 3D prints once again, and I'll have a quick zoom in there for you so you can look at some of these lovelies. Now one thing you may notice from this picture, and is very clear compared to on the destroyers, all the masts and cranes on these have been removed. Now the thing with the 3D prints is they are quite thick, and some people are quite happy using them, but I removed them initially, and once I'd done it, I couldn't look back. I had to then use wire instead of leaving the 3D prints as they were. And if I zoom in here, I think you will agree, the impression is better. Yes, they are a little bit fiddly. Yes, they can be a bit nasty when they break off every now and again, but a dab of super glue and they're tweezers and they're back in place. And I think they really enhance the ships. But these are basically the merchantmen, which you can use from, you can get away with pretending they're in the North Sea all the way through, as I say, to the Indian Ocean, and actually trying to get from Australia to support the Dutch. There you go, that's my introduction to Snorkers Godot. Now, I haven't covered any of the mechanics of the rules. You can find some of that already on Phil's website. These were setups that I did to try and show people the basics of the game. But obviously, I would recommend that if you are interested in naval gaming, and you're interested in naval gaming that doesn't involve carriers and battleships, but rather destroyers and light cruisers, patrol boats, merchantmen, these are for you. I must underline, these are incredibly fun rules. I've never had a bad game of them, even when I've been kicked to death by one of the opposition and had all my ships sunk or the force morale was broken. But essentially, this is what I'm trying to say to people here, is these are a great investment. You'll get a lot of fun with your friends. You'll get a lot of fun painting all these different ships and researching them and understanding their history and how they fought, where they fought, and what was the outcome of the battles they were involved in. Yeah. Be warned, this is a rabbit hole, but an immensely enjoyable rabbit hole, and one that I have now been following for 2.5 years in total. And it is fantastic to see that Phil has actually decided to do self-publishing and get his rules out there so people like you can go and buy a set and enjoy it as much as we do. Take care, everybody. Back to normal soon with some Just Game reports.